Type 3, Day 1, trigonometric functions of any angle. So we're going to evaluate trig functions given a ordered pair or point. And on the coordinate plane, you have your 4 quadrants. And in each quadrant, you're going to notice there are some trig functions that are positive and some that are negative. So in quadrant 1, we call this A, all, because in this quadrant, all your trig functions are positive. Positive x-axis, positive y-axis. In quadrant 2, we use S, and you're going to notice in this quadrant, the x's are negative and the y's are positive. So do negative x, positive y. In this quadrant, only sine and its reciprocal cosecant are positive. I'll put cosecant. In quadrant 3, the x's are negative and the y's. And that would be T for tangent and cotangent. So both are negative. Can't write. Let me write it down here. And in quadrant 4, this is C for cosine and secant. And in this quadrant, only the y is negative. So the acronym we use is A Smart Trig Class. So when you have to evaluate -3, -5, first I plot the point. And what you're doing is drawing a right triangle. Theta is always like in the center, and your right angle goes here. So this is 3, this is 5. So we have to find all 6 trig functions. Well, if you notice, we're missing our hypotenuse. So I'm going to do 3 squared, or -3 squared, plus -5 squared is equal to, and you could think of the hypotenuse as your radius. So we're going to get R is the square root of 34, or that's your hypotenuse. And your radius can't be negative. So when we calculate all the 6 trig functions, you're going to do sine theta, which is opposite over hypotenuse. And you have to rationalize it. Which will give us -5 over radical 34. Excuse me, over -5 radical 34 over 34. Cosine would be adjacent over hypotenuse. And we do the same, rationalize the denominator. And then tangent theta is opposite over adjacent, and negative divided by negative is a positive. Then we do our reciprocals. Cosecant of theta is hypotenuse over opposite. Secant theta is hypotenuse over adjacent. And cotangent theta is adjacent over opposite, which is 3/5. So those are your 6 trig functions. Now we also have what we call quadrantal angles, and those are the angles that are on your 4 quadrants. So we have 0 degrees or 0 pi. We have 90 degrees, which is pi over 2. We have 180 degrees, which is pi. And we have 270 degrees, which is 3 pi over 2. And we have 360 degrees, which is 2 pi. So at these quadrants, we have, let's imagine this is 0, 0. On a unit circle, if we go out 1 unit each way, those ordered pairs would be 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. And if you remember what we did before, when we have to find our 6 trig functions, the x is cosine theta, and the y is sine theta. And if you remember, to get tangent, you would divide sine over cosine, which is the same thing as y over x. So if they ask you to find tangent theta, remember tangent is the y, because at pi, tangent of pi is negative 1, 0 for the coordinate. You would divide the y over the x, which is 0. Or if they ask you to find cosine of 3 pi over 2. Well, that ordered pair at 3 pi over 2 is 0, negative 1. Remember, cosine is the x. So that answer is also 0. Let's do tangent pi over 2. So we would divide the y over the x, because that ordered pair is 0, 1. This is undefined, because you can't divide by 0. And we can do one more. Let's do sine 3 pi over 2. That ordered pair is 0, negative 1. Sine is the y coordinate, so that equals negative 1. Let's practice finding the quadrant in which an angle lies. Remember our acronym, a SMART trig class, because that's what you guys are. This is quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. In quadrant 1, all the trig functions are positive. Quadrant 2, only sine in its reciprocal. Quadrant 3, only tangent in its reciprocal. In quadrant 4, only cosine in its reciprocal. So A, they want to know which quadrant is tangent less than 0, that means negative, and cosine theta is greater than 0, that's positive. And the only one that fits that description is quadrant 4. B, what quadrant is sine of theta less than 0 and cosine of theta is also less than 0? And the only quadrant that would fit that would be quadrant 3. And C, cotangent of theta, remember that goes with tangent, is positive. And secant of theta, which remember that's cosine, it's reciprocal, is smaller than 0. Well, that would also be quadrant 3. Okay, in this example, it says that cosecant of theta is -4. I'm going to put it over 1. Remember, cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. And tangent is positive. So first I have to figure out where is this ordered pair? Or where is this point? So remember A, smart, trig, class. If tangent is positive, we could be here or we could be here. Well, because cosecant would have to be negative, then we can't be here. So that means that our triangle or our point would be in quadrant 3. So our hypotenuse is 4, and the opposite side is, I'll make this -1. We have to find the other 6 trig functions, so I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem because I'm missing the side. Solving for A, I'm going to get the square root of 15, which is my adjacent side. So now I can find the other 6 trig functions. Well, let's start with sine theta, which would be opposite over adjacent. Cosine theta. Oh, I'm sorry. Remember in this quadrant, the x and the y are negative. So make sure you show that that's negative. Over hypotenuse. Tangent theta is opposite over adjacent. And we have to rationalize it. So you're going to get negative radical 15 over 15. Negative divided by negative is a positive. We already have cosecant. Let's do secant theta, which would be hypotenuse over adjacent, and we have to rationalize it. So you're going to get -4 radical 15 over 15, and cotangent, which is adjacent over opposite, which becomes positive. So those are your other trig functions.